Good morning and welcome to the first session of the final day of the Digital Construction Summit 2020, key virtual event for digital decision makers in the built environment. I'd just like to thank our partners who supported the Digital Construction Summit over the past 3 days, the Chartered Institute of Building, Construction Manager, BIM+, Vero, the Centre for Digital Built Britain, i3PT, Ignite, Plan Radar, BuildDots, 3D Repo, and Oculo. So this morning, we're going to be discussing improving health and safety management with digital tools and data in association with 3D Repo. And this session is going to run for an hour up until about 11:30 this morning. We've got 4 speakers for you this morning, starting off with Gordon Crick, who is Health and Safety Inspector at the Health and Safety Executive, followed by Zane Ulhaq, Digital Engineering Manager at Atkins, then Bogdan Davydov, Customer Success Manager and BIM Specialist, 3D Repo, and Dr. William Collinge, Program Director, Construction, MACE, University of Manchester. And I should just introduce myself. My name's Neil Gerard, Associate Editor of Construction Manager magazine. Just to run you through the program for this morning, we're going to look at the Health and Safety Executive perspective on using digital tools to improve construction safety, as well as the challenges of organising complex and disorganised construction health and safety information. We're going to hear about 3D Repo's integrated health and safety management tool, SafetiBase, as well as using SafetiBase to identify and mark up health and safety issues and potential hazards in 3D models. We'll also look at improving management and structuring of health and safety data, and health and safety management using the BIM standards PAS 1192-6 in conjunction with SafetiBase. There should also be some time at the end for some questions and answers. Just to explain as part of the housekeeping how the Q&A function will work, you should find as an attendee, you should be able to access a Q&A function in Zoom. You just want to put your questions into that at any time during the presentations. The panelists will try to answer questions using the Q&A function once they've finished presenting, and any unanswered questions will be addressed in the Q&A session after all of the presentations have concluded. Should you wish to share anything, any thoughts or points on social media, then we have a hashtag, which is hashtag DCS2020, so please feel free to use that. Right, so I'm now going to hand over to our first speaker, Gordon Crick. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and mute myself, and once I've done that, Gordon, if you can just unmute yourself and get ready to share your screen.
My first task is introduce myself. So my name's Gordon Crick. I'm the Health and Safety Executive Construction Division Lead, if you like, for digital technology and digital developments in design. I, among other things, lead the BIM for Health and Safety Working Group. And I'm an inspector by background. So that's me. Now, I also lead for the construction division in an interface with a project called Discovering Safety, which is funded through Lloyd's Register Foundation. It's a multi-million-pound project, and that brings together Manchester University, HSE, and industry partners in looking to see how we can develop the use of data to improve health and safety outcomes on site. So that's Discovering Safety, the Discovering Safety program. Involved in this presentation, you've got myself from HSE, we've got Zane, who's from Atkins, but is now working for Discovering Safety part-time. We've got Bogdan from 3D Repo and Dr. William Collinge from Manchester University. So that's our team this morning. What I want to do first off is start at the general point. One of the key elements of this was about HSE's perspective on how digital tools can improve safety outcomes. And I really want straight off to extend that to health and safety. So digital tools offer great scope for improving health risk outcomes as well as safety. That's a really important point to make. Now, this first slide just shows you that HSE does have provenance, if you like. We have information in this area. If you go to that link on our website, you will find our Improving Health and Safety Outcomes report from 2018, And you'll find crucially the link to PAS 1192 Part 6, which is our specification for collaborative sharing and use of structured health and safety information using BIM. So we see ourselves in HSE as perhaps orchestrating change, orchestrating developments, but we're very much focused on working with the industry through this change. So why, central point, why is HSE encouraging digital tools? And I've got 3 words up there on the screen. We've got visualization, integration, and collaboration. Now, you'll know that the cornerstone of health and safety in construction is the CDM regulations. If you go to L153, which is our guidance book on those regulations, you won't find these words appear in there at all. And that's really interesting because that was published in 2015. These words sum up what digital tools, if you like, bring to the health and safety party. And I want to quickly make some comments on each of these areas. So let's start with visualization. And visualization, these 2 pictures on your screens tell a story. At about 2014-15, was working with National Grid, and I was told this story about these 2 models. Now, this is a model of a piece of a pump block piece, pit to go down into, maintain a piece of kit used by National Grid. Now, this was being shown in a design review meeting. So if you can imagine a design review meeting, you look at the model on the left-hand side, and in that meeting, you had the designers, you had the technical guys, but you also crucially had a maintenance operative, somebody who would be concerned with doing the work when this thing was built. And he immediately spotted that actually, look, you haven't got a guardrail at the top of that vertical ladder, and we should have one. And the point is, at that point, the designer could then very swiftly make the change to the model and improve the design. So because you were able to have an enhanced conversation about risk around a model, a change could be made. So that illustrates a really important point I want to hammer home today, is identify the risk, make the treatment, make the change, and you're doing it in a predicted state. So you're doing it before the costs and problems of doing it on site arise. So another aspect of visualization, which is really much more sophisticated application, we are hearing this language of digital rehearsal of designs. And this model you can see on screen is actually produced as an A2 poster for workers on site. So they're actually looking at the outcomes of a model. This has been constructed in such a way that it is almost photorealistic. So it enables the designers 6 months before the site project begins on site to actually create the future predicted state of what that site's going to look like, and fast forward that information into the construction process. And in that way, you're rehearsing the construction process, but you're crucially de-risking and able to predict far more risk and deal with it early. So this is another aspect of visualization. It's not just about improving the design phase, but it should be feeding forward into the construction and detailed construction planning phase. If we talk about integration, digital tools enable us to link information together, and you can see top left example from a few years ago from Alpha BT, but you've got a model linked with spreadsheets, linked with photographs, information integrated and available in one place so you can seamlessly get to it. Another aspect of integration is when you start doing 4D models, so we add time and we do sequencing, we do detailed simulation and planning. And this is really valuable at the construction planning stage. We are really committed to 4D as a technique. We think risk lurks in the interfaces between plans and paperwork. And if you can model something in an accurate sequence simulation, you can tease out those risks and deal with them early before they become a problem on site. On the left-hand side, just at the bottom, it's integration longitudinally across the length of a project and into use, which is becoming really important to us now in the current context, thinking about the building safety program and so on. And ISO 19650, the latest standard, has this focus on project information requirements and the project information model. And we are very focused on integration now on the longitudinal sense of a project. Collaboration, the third word. In the regulations, we can enforce cooperation and we can enforce coordination. Collaboration comes from the heart, I think, and people, we really need to get it, win over hearts and minds so people desire to collaborate. This little picture on the left-hand side was a presentation from a fire engineer to the BIM Health Safety Working Group, just illustrating what the fire safety issues were, what the building elements and components were, and then what the disciplines were that might be sitting around the design review table. And you can see how complicated it becomes. The amount of collaboration that is needed in a modern complex construction project is very significant, and digital tools make that happen. And we can expect now, I think, to see collaboration in a far more sophisticated and more evidenced way than perhaps we have previously done in construction design. So it's around collaboration through a project team, but it's also, of course, those left-hand side, it's actually all about improving outcomes on site. And if we can improve our foresight in early design through to planning, we will improve outcomes on site. So coming forward now to the subject of the SafetiBase product, if you like, what SafetiBase enables is what I've called articulation of foresight. In the regulations, you'll know that we require designers to foresee or to do something about foreseeable risk. And this element of foresight is so crucial. We believe 3D models in themselves, the visualization can enhance foresight, but we also believe there's something to be done about teaching foresight and articulating foresight and working out what the data is that will enable somebody to, as in this illustration, to look at a model, to zero in on a problem, and then to make some action so that that accident report, that fall from the open edge, does not happen. The risk does not eventuate. So we want foresight to prevent risk which is predictable from eventuating on site. Now I'm going to hand over at this point to my colleague Zane, who's going to talk a little bit more about SafetiBase, the concept.
Thank you, Gordon. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Perfect.
Yep.
Just
loud and
great.
clear.
So to provide some context then to the background of SafetiBase. So a few years ago, there was a group of people within the industry that decided that as information management is moving, that clearly one of the areas that needs to move with this is the improvement of health and safety. And it's been seen across a number of projects where individuals, organizations have collated information as time has progressed, and those typically, all those different risks that get collated all get eventually dumped within the spreadsheets in their own specific formats. And so it becomes a very convoluted and almost cover your back process, which invariably can cause a lot of difficulty when taking that information on site, and more often than not, it can be ignored in areas and overlooked, which ultimately all that does is puts people at more risk when they're going on site, as well as people who are in the vicinity of a site and perhaps not part of a construction project or even any kind of maintenance activity. So through understanding these problems and by trialing it on different areas, the project team, the team that came together decided that they would apply for Innovate UK funding around this and through the I3P, and were successful in procuring funding for this. And subsequently, after a few months of development, working together with 3D Repo, the consortium members being 3D Repo, Atkins, Mott MacDonald, Balfour Beatty, and many more, by bringing these different groups together, we developed a prototype, which you can see on the right. Bogdan will demo this shortly, so don't worry, he'll go into more detail on that. And essentially what it is, it's a cloud-based health and safety risk tool, which essentially allows us to document our risks following PAS 1192 Part 6, with a few extra features on top of that that are embedded within 3D Repo itself, allowing you to manage the data behind your risks more effectively in a multitude of ways. One of the benefits that you have in this is that as it follows PAS 1192 Part 6, it's not the flavor of the month for any particular company, or any organization. What it does is everyone can follow a consistent process on how to document their information. That can be the same across projects, across portfolios. And it also means that when you move from different stages on the project, which are typically different contract stages, there's a consistency for the project itself. So there's no loss of information as you go down, and there's no risk of having residual information as the only element that remains, but also anything that's signed off or closed off as a risk can be taken forward as well and part of the archive. So some of the basic features I mentioned is PAS 1192 Part 6. The other really good thing about this is that it creates an immutable audit trail. So going back on what Gordon was saying, where we look around collaboration and how things can be more effective, one of the things that this does, and most people say a tool is a tool, and that doesn't necessarily change behaviors, but tools, when developed in the right way, can try and enhance behaviors amongst communities and amongst teams. So what this does by having an immutable audit trail is, let's say, and Bogdan will demo some of this, let's say I were to change one of the risks and apply a setting which said it will go from a low risk to a very high, you will automatically see it will tag my user, it will tag where I made that change, and I can comment why I made that change, and it will timestamp it. The powerful element of that is it stops people documenting their risks right at the end of a project. And so we're actually moving to this concept of a safety first approach to design. So we are documenting it as we go along, rather than saying we've got to the end, what do we think the residual risks are? Because invariably, as we get to milestones, we can typically get very rushed to make sure that we've delivered all the documentation that's required. And health and safety risk or design risk information, or even construction risk information, is not the only thing that we need to share with the following party. So we need to make sure that it's shared across the process. This promotes people from not doing it right at the end, because everyone can see you've done it right at the end, which invariably you may get challenged on as to why it wasn't done at the time of doing the work. So perhaps in the case of a designer, why you weren't doing it throughout the entire process. One of the powerful things as well about this is you can see it's in a web-based platform, but it's set up in such a way that using a specific type of database schema and using appropriate REST APIs allows for different groups to incorporate SafetiBase and 3D Repo by extension into the work that they do. So at the moment, there's a Revit plugin that is being developed and released that teams can use to work within environments that they're more familiar with, whilst still hosting that information on 3D Repo servers. The power of that is that you don't have to break your processes or your workflows, but what you're doing is you're following what we're hoping will become an industry standard on how you should do it from a schema perspective. PAS 1192 Part 6 is already a definitive way on which to do this. This is just building a slightly additional element on top of that to demonstrate that. And so the benefits are that when you have that health and safety first approach, you can tie everything up together across the life cycle of a project or an asset, and you can look at that from a project, program, and organizational reporting methodology as well. This is obviously more powerful when you're looking at it from the design risk treatment tool that Gordon mentioned, and that's where the Discovering Safety program combined together with the SafetiBase group to develop this tool, which is the relevance of where these two different bodies have coalesced and come together. And also one of the reasons why I'm working on the Discovering Safety program as well with Gordon and a few other colleagues. And ultimately, because you're looking at reporting at varying levels, so you can take it from a project but roll it up to a program and an organizational level, what it allows you to do is target your most high risk priorities. So if I had 5 sites with the same types of risk and I had the same types of treatment for one of the sites, I could apply that across different sites very quickly. And because of this standardized way of reporting and pulling data together, it just means that the lessons learned that we can garner from this are far more powerful than what we could ever do before. And it just requires a few changes to how we do things. So I'll hand back over to Gordon now, and I believe he'll wrap up and move on to Bogdan.
Yes, hello, you can hear me again?
Yes, we can hear you. Thanks, Gordon. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 very quick slides. Just to hammer home the point, one reason why we are keen to support this safety-based concept and the open learning and contribution that can come from it is the faithfulness it has to the PAS 1192 risk schema. so that it enables risks to be tracked and followed. But the piece which we are interested in talking to you about today, particularly this designer risk suggestion tool side of it, is illustrated by this screenshot, if you like, which shows some information about a risk. Now, we've identified certain data which we believe identifies what we call a risk scenario, and this data is on this slide. So it's a combination of the construction scope, the activity, the element type, the location, and then two factors about risk. The risk factor, something which links the risk factor or risk category, such as a fall from an open edge. Now, we believe that this data together can identify a scenario which a designer can be trained to recognize and realize that actually when I see this scenario, I need to make sure something is done about it, because that will eventuate risk in the construction phase. And having identified scenarios, this tool also puts forward treatments, and we're doing it in the style of very short sentence prompts. So we will prompt a treatment, and we'll do it either, we'll suggest it could be eliminate, it could be a reduction, it could be controlled by subsequent design, or it could be inform. And it could happen at the preliminary stage, detail stage, or the site-based stage of design. So that there's a framework to the treatments we're suggesting. And this is built into the tool. This is really the focus of, in some ways, of the discovering safety work, to build in from the beginning of the design process this enhanced ability for designers to identify risk scenarios and to take on treatments. So having said that, I'm going to hand over to Bogdan now to demo the SafetiBase tool. So Bogdan, over to you.
Hi, Gordon. Thanks. Hi, everyone. Let me just bring my screen up for you. Can you confirm you can see this?
I can see it, yes, Bogdan.
Okay, fantastic. Cool. Thanks, guys. I think that was quite a nice presentation so far in terms of what SafetiBase is, and most importantly, project discovering safety is. Having heard all of that, guys, I'm just gonna make it a bit more entertaining for you. Instead of looking at images, we're actually gonna look at how it works and how it can fit in your current workflows, and actually how easy it is to do so as well. So if I, for instance, into your repo, jump to one of my model containers, and we'll look at the module of SafetiBase and see how it works. So SafetiBase is based solely on PAS 1192 Part 6 documentation, which encourages the industry to follow standardized health and safety and risk mitigation in BIM environment, right? It all sounds great. We had some really good experts come forward and put documentation together, and it really is pushing the industry forward at enormous pace, right? The only problem with that is there have been two areas of maybe a slight hesitation. One is, if you're encouraging the industry to use these standards, not everybody knows them, right? And quite often project team hesitates and doesn't understand what the industry standards are, or don't even know how to follow them, right? The second problem is, if it's encouraged across BIM world, right, the 3D environment and things like that, accessibility to data becomes quite problematic, right? Quite often people don't have either licenses or the sheer understanding of how to navigate the 3D models or the files itself, right? They don't have access to document control management system or anything like that. So let me show you how all of those things are brought together into a single place. A single place like 3D Repo, which is, as you can see, is run in the web browser. So if we look at things like SafetiBase, it's focusing on risk management in 3D model environment. And as you notice, it's very simple and very straightforward. It's all about identifying risks and placing them somewhere in the model. You can see the risk beacons, they're all dependent on the risk level, severity, they're all color-coded. But what's really nice is that everything is now set in one place, both your 2D information and your 3D model environment. So whether it's something important that somebody wants to share with you about mitigating this risk or identifying it, you can always see it in one place. But the really cool thing is, since we're following the industry standards such as PAS 1192 Part 6, we can actually take a real advantage of that. Because what we do here now is we're actually structuring our data. And the project Discovering Safety is an ambitious project, and it's great to be part of it. But some aspects of it won't be achievable unless we structure our data. And I'll be honest with you, the aim of this project is to be able to share the best scenario solutions in terms of risk mitigation. And how can this be achieved? Is by having the data that you can actually read and go through, identify, and reuse to make better decisions. If that data is not structured, you're gonna waste all your time trying to figure it out, right? Or just look at other industries, right? Whether you're doing business or, for instance, coming up with a vaccine or anything, all you're reliant on is data analytics, right? You see where there are good patterns, you pick them, and then you make a decision. The same happens in here. For instance, if we identify a risk in here, all we have to do is we can just fill out our fields of information, which are following the industry standards. These fields can be predefined as well, so you don't have to sit there, scratch your head thinking what exactly that I need to put in. But what's really nice is that, once again, it creates a mutable audit trail. So you can always see what it is that people are actually talking about, what is the actual risk itself that you're trying to identify. For instance, maybe there's some other information than somebody else picked up about it. You can actually see that also. You're not just sat there, reading lines of text and trying to think, well, why can't they fix it? What is the actual risk in here? You start realizing that, the actual risk in here, like in many other risks that might have been identified on the project, is lying in the fact that, okay, there's access to crawler cab that is limited. You start realizing that, oh yes, they're absolutely right. So perhaps the guy who's accessing or exiting this crawler cab may well fall down to his death, right? If I just saw the text, I wouldn't quite understand the actual situation, the severity of it. If I saw a PDF plan, I wouldn't quite understand it also. And if I'm trying to address it to my site team that is about to set foot on site and do this work, it's really crucial to make sure that they get access to all this data. So they can, you can simply identify it, push it onto them. They can open up the web browser, log in, and then see what it is and where it is. Now, here is the latest bit that we've done on the project Discovering Safety. And this is how we're actually trying to utilize the risk information in prompting some treatment suggestions. So for instance, if I identify a risk, and there are some fields of information that match a treatment solution from the past, let's say a previous project that had similar problem, I can actually identify if there are any suggestions. So now I don't have to wait for a team to get together. I don't have to wait for somebody to approve my solution or anything. All I can say now is say, okay, well, this is site temporary works and I want to completely eliminate it. And this is what is proposed in here. Okay. So maybe I can use that solution. I can notify the team and then say, guys, I'm proposing it. And the likelihood is most likely to be low now. Notice that the information updates. You have a full audit trail in the sense of what has happened and who changed what. Everything is listed. But what's really nice is that we are now recycling that structured data that we have in our database. And the only thing to mention right now, because these are the initial steps that we're taking in terms of treatment suggestion and risk mitigation, these treatment suggestions come up only from pre-approved scenarios in our database. And I'll show you how it works right now. So if I go back to my team space, what I can do is I can actually download the information about that database that we have in our team space. In this case, it's my personal team space. So those treatment suggestions, mitigation proposals and things, they're all driven by the information that was filled out previously. This could be defined either on project basis, or this could be defined across the actual company. What's really nice is that you're keeping everything structured without needing to teach individuals how to follow that structure, or them having got to learn what exactly that you need to input. What's really nice is that somebody comes up with a silly suggestion or something like that. You're not just relying on machines suddenly looking at it and saying, oh yeah, let's use this suggestion. The one thing you have to understand that whether it's machine learning or AI that you're aiming for, it relies on vast data set. which is something that discovery safety wants to achieve, as well as structured data, right? If you're just teaching it on 2 projects that you've done in the past, the likelihood of you not repeating the same mistake is slim. Because if you've done that mistake in the past and haven't found a solution for it, then why should you list it in suggestions again to go over that mistake again? So this is something that we're trying to achieve. We're trying to create this pool of knowledge, bring all those people together that, A, in first place, created the industry standards. But now we want to actually share that knowledge to make sure that we can rectify risks and problems and save lives on site. So this is kind of how it works, but actually, just to make it a bit more entertaining and actually make you understand how you can use it and how exactly it works and how you can leverage this on your current workflows, I'll give you a really quick live demonstration. So for instance, let's say we create our container, we call it a test in this case. I can maybe pull in a model that may well be published later in time. So we have a little information container here. And I'm going to use it now to get access to that knowledge base to actually utilize treatment suggestions and be able to articulate my risks in a much more user-friendly fashion. So for instance, if I go to my risks dashboard, what I can do next is that, let's say I have my own risk register. So this is something that we're all familiar with. This is some sort of Excel spreadsheet, could be any document, could be Google Doc, could be SharePoint file or something like that. It's all great, but it's a little bit like a race car stuck in a garage, right? If you don't have a racetrack, it just sits there and it rusts away, right? So does this Excel document. If you don't share it with the rest of the team or with the 3D models that you're inheriting, it's just becoming a piece of information that just sits there and gets filled up with more and more information. I'll show you how with the click of a few buttons, I can actually share it with the rest of the team. So let's say this is my risk register and I have some valuable information, but I actually want to work on it now. And I want to actually be able to see if there are any suggestions in our own database that I can utilize for these actual risks in here. What I can do next is I actually switch back to here, and all I have to do is query my model ID, so I know what database I'm actually looking at. And then I'm going to go back to my actual spreadsheet. In here, I'm going to say, okay, cool, let's work on this model in here, right? The next thing I can do is utilize the power of APIs. And this is something that is so powerful. You're no longer separating the teams and making them work on their own tasks, and then the communication is falling apart. You're actually communicating across various platforms, various databases simultaneously. Thus, these databases can enrich themselves and help you find better solutions on your projects. So if I click push to 3D Repo, what you'll notice is now we're actually populating these risks from the database, which is a file that some may not have access to. The really good thing is, if I'm a site manager or somebody, let's say I open up this dashboard and I suddenly go through this and I see, okay, access to crawler cab. I remember they pointed out, I got an email about this. Now I can see all the information about it. But what's really nice is then, in this case, let's say I have a site image that I actually want to attribute to this, right? So it's actually bringing more value to your risk mitigation. I can say, oh yes, this is what you're talking about, isn't this the case, right? So you update this information. Not only you bring it into your database that you can use to populate your treatment suggestions, but the real beauty is, let's say we just went from an Excel spreadsheet to something where we can communicate this. The next thing is you actually inherit some sort of 3D BIM file or something like that. Why waste your time by trying to figure out how to utilize that? Just share it with the team also. I can actually jump from this simple dashboard, and now actually I'm going to be working with the 3D model itself. So I will be taking that Puzzle 92 Part 6 documentation and the information that I'm using to obviously populate my treatment suggestions, proposals for the future. I'm actually also going to share that with some other project stakeholder and not just look at, let's say, this Excel document that, you know, you read things, you look at things, you look at numbers. It doesn't quite make sense, if to be honest with you. Right now, I'm going to share it with somebody else, and then me as a site manager, I might say, oh, okay, you've just shared the model. Yeah, we know where it is. Here's the image of it, of what it is on site. I'm actually going to link it to 3D model also, right? So I went from 2D Excel spreadsheet, my text document, to now working collaboratively with somebody else in 3D environment. So I can update viewpoint. Would you like to create new screenshot? No, I'm happy with that. If I want to, I can maybe share some other resources or something like that. Maybe I have a new image from a site or something like that, right? I can maybe share that and then say, you know, current condition, and say, here you go, guys. This is what it currently is on site. I can then notify the team and then say, have a look at this, right? So what's really nice is that not only you don't have to waste time learning the standards, isolating yourself by just looking at endless cells in Excel, you're actually leveraging information across multiple project stakeholders. And on top of that, what's really great is that you can utilize and populate the database that can benefit you in the future for making better decisions. Like right now, I can look at the same information and utilize my treatment suggestions. Whether it's done in 3D, whether I go back to my dashboards, I can do the same thing and then say, okay, well, let's have a look what it is that we can possibly utilize so that we can actually resolve this issue quicker and better. So that's kind of the workflow of it right now. The project is obviously going to go a lot further and a lot more ambitious as the time goes on. But the real thing is, well, like I said, we're going from the professionals who establish these standards to professionals that can create this knowledge base, they can really save lives, and we can actually use to make the environment on site or in construction industry a lot safer. So if you can jump on board and help us populate this information and make your projects work more effectively, it's highly appreciated, and it would be great to have you on board. So I'll conclude here, and I will try not to overwhelm you with additional information. And I'm going to pass it over to Bill, who I think will present a few additional slides. Thank you very much, everyone.
That's great. Thank you very much, Bogdan. Bill, if you are ready, I've just unmuted you, so if you can just share your screen and begin your presentation, that would be great.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Bogdan. So hopefully you can hear me and you can see my slides.
Yep, it's all there. Thank you. Yeah. Great.
So that was really great. And what I'll do now really is just talk about the benefits of the tool. And a lot of them have been covered already. And then I'm just going to talk very briefly about the pilot projects that we've got now initiating. So we're now looking to engage with industry to use this tool more, basically, so it becomes more mature. So the overall benefits of this risk suggestion tool that we see is this tool data structure really follows the industry standards and guidelines. So Gordon spoke about PAS 11926, and so did Bogdan and Zane. And really, this tool is all about engaging with that guideline and making it real and activating it really in a BIM environment. Connected to that, obviously, is the CDM regulations 2015 and the requirements of principal designers. So if you know the CDM 2015, it talks about foreseeable risk. It talks about early action to identify risk and then the treatment. And within CDM, you have the ERIC acronym, eliminate, reduce, inform, control, and you've got the different phases of the project as well. So as Bogdan said, this tool is really activating these guidelines and making them more accessible and usable in a digital platform, which we think is one of the major benefits of it. A further benefit is the standardized way of identifying, reviewing, sharing, and tracking hazards and treatments. So we have the concepts that lead to a risk scenario, and then we have the treatment element as well. And it's really important that we structure the data in a way that everybody can go on the same journey together in this risk scenario identification journey. That's critically important. And we believe the tool does this, and I think that's one of the real benefits of this digital tool and how designers and engineers can use it to identify risks. It closes down the possibilities of opinions coming in, and it kind of as I say, holds the hand of the designer in that journey, which is a real benefit, we believe. So as you've seen, that this tool really builds on the strengths of BIM and SafetiBase as well, in order to visualize the hazard scenario and treatment situations. And this is a real benefit as well. The tool can be used in non-BIM environments as well. And we've also developing this Revit add-in as well. So for companies, projects who are not using SafetiBase, there's the option there to see how it can be used in your own software packages. So that's very important, obviously. This tool is for industry, it's for everybody to use, to improve their processes. We don't want it to become like a silo kind of software offering. So I think the visual aspects, as Gordon spoke about, is very important, and the collaboration and the integration that visualization offers on the screen. A further benefit, we believe, is to access and use risk treatment suggestions from your previous projects. So as Bogdan said, to populate this knowledge library with previous incidents, so your designers can use them again in a new project. We're at the beginning of that journey, but we really see that this is a major potential for this tool going forward. And also the HSE Risk Library. So because the HSE is a major partner on this project, we're looking to activate their archive. In other words, all those information that they have in there about accidents and risks, we can populate the tool library with that data once it's desensitized, obviously, which again can help industry in their journey for identifying risks and treatments for problems. We believe this is an excellent open learning training tool for designers. We think it's user-friendly, but we're on a journey to make it more so. I think there are obvious benefits here to get young designers engaged with this, and that they can see the whole risk scenario treatment journey. So this is another benefit that we believe comes from this tool. We're also looking at developing the tool further with a 4D environment to link it with a program, which would be great, and we're on that journey, just beginning that journey as well. Automatic rule checking, Bogdan talked about briefly. It's another ambition of this tool in the future, but we're really conscious of not trying to run before we can walk, and we need to take industry on the journey with us, and that's very important for this project. So we're quite careful with these aspects, but we are on the journey to move forward. The HSE uploads I've talked about, that's the archive to make it accessible and usable for industry. And we really believe that this tool has a great potential for better use of data for the client, for improved safety and asset management. So potentially in the future, we could see data from an asset or a facility, an accident perhaps in an elevator, and then how to use that data to inform better design in another project going forward. So because it's all about data, it's all about structuring the data and using the data well, we hope that this tool can connect with those kind of bigger ambitions for clients and projects. And we think that would really get the clients more interested in the tool as well. So this is about piloting the tool. I mean, what you've seen is the prototype, and we've used it now with industry, but we're really looking to pilot it more. We're looking for trial projects where we can improve, refine, and strengthen the tool via industry engagement. So University of Manchester now, we're actively engaging, and we're looking for companies to use this tool on their projects. Some of the questions we're looking for answers to are, does the tool fulfill the needs of designers? How does it fit well with your work processes? What are the standout issues? Because this tool really needs industry support and use in order for it to become mature, and that's very important. We've got a Discovering Safety community of practice, which we're now setting up. So if you become involved with us as a trial project, you join a community of practice, you'll exchange ideas with other companies about the tool. We will have a website ready for that. It's connected to the Discovering Safety website there, which you can see. That URL I've put on the screen. It's also important that if you become a pilot project with us, we align to your project workflows. You know, obviously you're worried about your project time frame, your overall budget, and we would certainly align to whatever's going on in your project as much as possible. That's why we've made the tool compatible with different software platforms. We can enter a negotiation and discuss things, things like making the licensing free, perhaps, or in order to get designers on board with it. So, you know, we're really looking for pilot project buy-in now to push this tool forward. So we really believe that this project has mutually beneficial benefits for industry and discovering safety to work together. We've been on a journey with this research project. It's been challenging and difficult, but I think we've done well. We're now ready to push it forward to the industry more and get more improvements and more engagement, essentially. But the takeaway message here is that data does drive improvements. I'm sure we all know that anyway. But you know, I think this project really shows how that can be made a reality. And if I can just close with a kind of summary slide here, where I think we talk about industry, we talk about academic research, and we talk about government. And I think this research project has really shown the benefits of collaboration when we come together on a research project. It's not easy, it's challenging, but we all want the same results. We all want to improve health and safety in construction. We want to reduce accidents. And I think now with these kind of tools, especially this tool, we're kind of moving forward and seeing what can happen to make that happen when we all work together effectively. So if you're interested to learn more or participate, please contact us. We've got online sessions available. We can do a session for your project where you can learn more about this, and hopefully if you want to get involved as a pilot project, we can look at that as well. So just my final slide here is just the names of us. Again, it's Gordon, Zane, Bogdan and Bill. So I've got Gordon's and myself's email there for you to note down. And I think I'll close it there, Neil, and hand it over to the Q&A.
That's great. Thank you very much, Phil. Some fantastic presentations from all of you there, and you passed on to each other seamlessly as well. So thank you very much for that. I'm just going to bring up my screen again quickly here. We've got some time now for some questions and answers. Let me just make this full screen. So we've had quite a few questions come through on the function here, which I'm going to run through now. So first of all, a question from an anonymous attendee about how panelists get buy-in to digital safety tools from site-level staff. Anyone of you want to, hang on, let me just make sure you're all unmuted. Sorry, I just need to, I think I may have left some of you muted.
Can I jump in quickly on that one, Neil?
Yes, certainly, please do.
Just very briefly, the stories I hear is you've got to demonstrate the benefits. And I've heard several stories of cynical site managers who are wedded to old ways, you know, 2D drawings. Actually, if they are shown models that are relevant to them and solve some of their problems, the buy-in can be very, very swift indeed. And it is, I think, for digital information managers and for senior designers to think this through in order to make sure that you get this feed forward of information, the digital information from the design phase in an exciting way into the construction phase. But I think this, if we can get that buy-in, I think that's one of the blockers, one of the barriers that we need to overcome. That would be my comment.
Okay, thank you, Gordon.
I'd also add to that that some examples we've seen is when you have high-risk activities and you'd need to have some specific type of expertise or something of that effect. And typically when you hold design, well, essentially rehearsal sessions of that activity, whilst people are understanding the various activities ongoing around them, we've found that you're almost demonstrating, similar to what Gordon has said, the value to them by being able to rehearse all of that in advance of it actually happening, but being able to also visualize everything that's going on around them rather than just being verbally told, expect this, expect this, expect this. So it's just making it relevant and realistic to the particular group that you're talking to, and especially when you're trying to target problems that will or possibly affect them.
That's great. Okay, thanks to you both on that one. We've got quite a few questions actually coming in, so I'm just going to run on to another one here, which is quite specific, which is, does the system incorporate or integrate equipment limitations where those are incorporated in a BIM model of the equipment? For example, a crane at maximum payload overreaching maximum extension, or a maximum angle for that payload. Does one of you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I can answer that. I understand that's obviously rule checking for your geometry within the actual model. Currently, it doesn't do that just yet. This is something that is ambitious, and we would love to do that in the future. You can, however, utilize our data validation rule checks. So alongside SafetiBase, you can check for specific datas in the model. So if you are validating, let's say, concrete pours, volumetrics and things like that, or just the information about the object, you can do that. In terms of seeing how far the actual geometry is sticking out and if it is within or outside the exclusion zone, that is something that is not there yet, but will be in the future, and we'll obviously keep the industry posted on that.
Okay. And just following on from that, really, there's another question about other health issues such as vibration, sound, and dust. Does the system pick up on those at all?
Go on, Gordon.
Yeah, we're at a very early stage of thinking through how we can do that. The reason why I'm enthusiastic that digital tools can help is that the visualization elements in digital programs will enable us to visualize dust, noise, and almost make invisible things visible through visualization techniques. So I'm pretty confident that if we started a strand of work looking at noise, for example, we could do something quite dynamic, looking at how noise and noise attenuation in construction can be managed and modeled through the life of a construction project. So I think this is all to play for. I think it's a great area for people to be thinking about.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would just add to that. I mean, it is possible, once again. It really depends on what your source of information is and where it's coming from. So for things like vibration, sound, and dust, do you make an assumption, or do you actually base it on the object information? Do you look for its unique ID, or do you query a specific database that has all the data set for how high the decibels are for, let's say, excavator or something like that? Once again, it is possible, and I think in this case you can leverage the use of APIs by bringing that additional information into the SafetiBase.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we've got a couple of questions here about, well, I suppose I would categorize them as being about software and compatibility. So the first of those is, can the system export any type of report or link with reporting tools? And the examples given are Excel or Power BI.
Yeah, exactly. You can do that. Just like I showed you where I was pushing Excel information into 3D Repo, you can push information back out into Excel and have a live link. You can create PDF reports with direct URL links for each individual risk. You can also link it to Power BI, Tableau, Airtable. I mean, the world is your oyster. Whatever you like, whichever graph, you can do that. And that's where the beauty is.
Okay. Secondly, a question about BIM formats, which are ported for viewing in SafetiBase.
Okay, cool. Currently, you can push famous file formats such as Revit, IFC, DGN, FBX, OBJ, if you have some textured models that you want to bring in. You also can push Navisworks and anything else from Navisworks. We have a plugin for that as well. That's kind of as far as we got to, and I have to tell you that's already ticking a lot of the boxes because, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of the time people never had software tools to open specific file formats. So you can bring in as much information as you can so far. Great.
Okay, I think that one covers off another question we had there from Sean Farrell, which was asking, does this only work with Revit or Civil platforms as well? But I think you've covered that one there, haven't you? Perhaps moving on to a different question, do you foresee possibilities for linking incident reports back to the system? And how could this work in practical terms for site users?
Yes, so for that one, one of the things that we are looking at as some of the future iterations to this is by doing incident reporting on site and linking it back to risk. So that's a good point mentioned there. One of the things we think that will be powerful in this is if we can link incidents back to risk treatments and then link that back to particular risks as well. Ultimately, what that can do is it can demonstrate, depending on the environment and provided you've got the right categorization of your risks and the treatments and incidents, you would be able to determine what is the most effective treatment for a type of risk and therefore what's not going to be an effective treatment for it. What that will mean is what activities and what assets are put in place should be the industry's most effective way of dealing with those incidents or well, dealing with those types of risks, whether it's an activity itself or whether it's something which is in relation to a future risk, such as during maintenance and operation. So I think for site users and maintenance users, yes, there will be a lot of value in that because we can do a lot more with the data then. At the moment, it's something that we're looking to build into as functionality within SafetiBase and through the DSP as well.
We've got a couple of questions here. Somebody asked, where can we download presentations? They've got colleagues who are very interested in this. That's great to hear. Somebody else has asked if it's been recorded. The answer is yes. I'm going to move on to that when we hit the final slide of my presentation. But just for a couple more questions for our panelists first. One for you, Gordon. You've been asked, how often do you find contractors using digital tools to manage safety on projects you visit?
Yeah, a lot actually. I mean, I think there is this question about small sites, domestic refurb. Obviously, at the bottom end, that it's much rarer, but good practice on relatively complex and substantial, even regional projects is growing apace. And I think I'd pick out some of the best practice with 4D modeling and construction planning is happening, which is contractor-led on not necessarily massive projects. So I think the contractor-led portion of design is a really fertile area for BIM development at the moment. Now, in terms of developing this for small projects, our ambition is to make these techniques scalable, and Bogdan demonstrated that you can use the SafetiBase tool in a very lightweight way. Now, can that be mobile friendly? Can it be used on a mobile phone? Can we produce applications for mobile phones which are more basic? I think the answer is absolutely into the future. So I'm encouraged by current uptake. I think the issue is actually one of integration and joining end to end around a lot of the applications which are about at the moment. And that's particularly true probably at the small end of the market. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Thanks, Gordon. You mentioned briefly uptake there, and there's another question actually to Bogdan, which runs along this theme as well, which is how can health and safety professionals influence their organizations to use technology like this as part of their project planning and management?
Could say it's a rhetorical question, but there are some answers to it. It really depends on how your project is structured and what is it that you're trying to achieve, right? Whether you're, for instance, communicating with teams that inherit 3D data or anything like that, the simple use case is just picking it up and using it, right? We had a number of customers that struggle with selling certain ideas to their disciplines or companies. But as soon as they just gave it a try, they suddenly realized, oh, you know what, it's super friendly, user-friendly, and it's really easy to use. And that's exactly all it takes. It's just a matter of actually encouraging others, having some real examples, because once again, we can show you all demos we like and things, right? But nobody is gonna really know the true value of it until they see it work for them. So you're more than welcome to sign up, start using it, show some real life examples. And you need to understand what is it that the actual company wants. Are they looking to perhaps save lives or hit profit margins? And, you know, in these cases, if you're trying to encourage the use of it, you need to understand whether you want to solve problems just on this project right here, right now, or do you want to have a solution for the future? You know, because the tools we're trying to create is the tools that create the data that you can then reuse, recycle, and also review to make better decisions on project bids and future use, and obviously saving lives on site.
Can I just make a comment? A persuasive tool, which is a really low-cost entry point, and I'm not an expert in this, but I mean, others will be, is the use of photographs as models, and the ability to take 360-degree photographs, tag information onto a photograph, and then tag risks to them, is a very low-cost way to demonstrate value of this structured risk information, and to capture it for both site use and for asset use. And I would encourage people to look into that, because that really is an entry-level way of thinking, well, how can I use visualization in and structured data in my project?
Yeah, and I can just add that in asset management terms, then this kind of visualization can kind of inform the clients of different options, right, for them. So if, for example, it's cleaning windows, then especially if we're going to connect it to the 4D kind of work, you can see different options for a solution for cleaning a window, and the safety aspects of those, as well as the cost and the overall cost of maintenance. But I mean, that's in the future, but it's, you know, this is about looking forward as well, I think.
Okay, thank you. I've got an observation here rather than a question, and I think it relates back to the earlier question we had about getting buy-in from site level staff. Alistair McPartlin says, completely agree with Gordon. It's about demonstrating what the benefits are for the individual and what's in it for them. So just thought I'd read that one out to you. We have another question here about technology, which I think we've already touched on this, but I'm just going to read the question out, and if there's anything any of the panelists would like to add on this, then please feel free. And the question is, does the platform work well on iPads, Surface Pros, or mobiles?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of technical standpoint, currently, just like I showed you the Kanban board earlier, not looking at 3D models, you can run it in the web, you can open it on iPad if you want to. If you're talking about looking at large 3D models, like in my case, I had fairly small one open initially, you can run it on the web, on your desktop, laptop. You perhaps could run that model on iPad, but of course, once it gets larger, it might eat or require a lot more RAM on your iPad. So you might, need to get a newer version of iPad there. But once again, like we said, the entry level for it to make real use of just following industry standards, treatment suggestions, and things like that, you don't necessarily have to have 3D models, and you can start working on it, whether on iPad or mobile device or web browser.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We've got another question about plant here. This is from John Charles, by the way. How are you capturing the dimensions and form of specific types of plant, he asks.
Gordon again. I mean, one of the I showed that digital rehearsal example from Premtech, company called Premtech, and I mean, Premtech literally go to the lengths of laser scanning individual pieces of plant and putting them in their models, so they don't leave anything to chance in terms of predicting issues. I think there is work to be done in terms of libraries, plant libraries, and digital data, which can help with that issue that was raised earlier about limitations of plant and where you have to limit the functionality of a piece of plant for safety reasons. So I think, again, this is an area for development, and I think there are different solutions available at the moment. Don't know if any of the other panelists have any more expert knowledge.
Anyone want to add to that one? No. Okay. Oh.
Nope, I'm good. Thanks.
Okay. Well, we'll move on. We've got a question from Justin Stanton here, and this is about construction projects. He asks, are there any limitations on the type of project this system could be applied to?
I can jump in there. In terms of type of construction project, not at all. You can apply to anything you are doing. It could be infrastructure, it could be some sort of oil or refinery plant. It could be you building a skyscraper or doing some infrastructure groundworks, or maybe even interior fit out or demolition. like I said, everything is there, and you can incorporate any information, whether it's 3D models you're looking at, 360 photos you're bringing from site, or just images or anything like that. Even PDF plans, you can bring it all in one place. In terms of size for information, once again, it really depends. You know, you can have your SafetiBase module as big as you like it to be. But once again, you can filter information out quite nicely and look at the right risks when you need to.
Yeah, Gordon again, just to comment on, at the moment, the state of play with our development of the tool is it's been developed for a very narrow construction scope. And we have risk treatments only in a very narrow risk area. So the present state of play is it's narrowly developed, but the potential scope is as wide as the data. So that and the construction risk profile, to be honest. So I would like to focus not so much on the type of project, but on the risks that are presented and the treatments that are right in the context of the particular construction that you're carrying out.
Okay, thank you. Well, we've got one final question here from an anonymous attendee, which is about the scalability and the future of a small-scale, lightweight model. They've asked, can you see this integrating with platforms used by multiple businesses in the SME sector?
I'd say yes. Bogdan, well, let's go. Zane, have you got a comment?
Yeah, so the whole premise behind why this was done, why SafetiBase, so if we just look at specifically SafetiBase, and the reason why this was taken as a concept that should be carried out by the industry and done through Innovate UK funding was for the purpose of making it open source. So the whole idea behind it in that regard is for something to share with the industry. So the vision and the hope is that very much we can engage with the SMEs within the construction sector. We appreciate that makes up a considerable number of colleagues. Now, at the moment, of course, we're trying to work towards more of a sustainable solution in that manner. And what I'd suggest is that have a look at SafetiBase on 3D Repo's website. There is a free version to use, so it is available for people to use. With regards to currently with the lightweight model, it's something that you can engage with on the basis of how detailed you make your model personally, as opposed to the system prescribing that. But I think, Bogdan, correct me if I'm wrong, it's up to 100 meg that you can use with 3 users to use 3D Repos, all the 3D Repo services, and an extension of that, of course, is SafetiBase. So there are future plans on how to take that further and do more with it, but there is already a platform which is free for people to use if they wish to do so.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to add to that one at all? No. Okay. Well, that covers all of our questions. So it just remains for me to thank all of our speakers: Gordon Crick, Zane Ulhaq, Bogdan Davydov, and Dr. William Collinge for some excellent presentations. So thank you very much for that. Just to say that we're going to have we've got some more on Digital Construction Summit 2020. This webinar will be available on demand. I know a couple of people have asked about that. Thank you to 3D Repo for supporting this webinar. If you'd like more information on 3D Repo, you can go to 3drepo.com. For details of the rest of the program, we do have another session this afternoon for DCS. Please go to the event website, which is digitalconstructionsummit.uk. And just to let you know also that there will be editorial coverage of the event that's going to appear on constructionmanagermagazine.com and bimplus.co.uk. So thanks once again to all of our speakers. Thank you to the attendees who showed up to watch this webinar today. I hope you found it useful. Thanks once again.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks all. Bye.
Thank you.